Hey, welcome back. I thought I'd go over a few things that I did on this red Honda Express NA50. As you can see, we got on a new seat cover, and there's just a little gap here. I'd hate to take it off. You could just use a little cushioning here. I added material here around the back and in this corner. I bought some foam and borrowed my friend's electric knife, which works like a charm. Thank you, Carl. And so it came out, pretty good. There was no material missing from here. I don't know if I just added too much here, and I've got like just a tiny gap here because it's stretched over the top more. But if you remember the old seat cover, this is quite an improvement. I'll show you the underside of the seat too. So some of the metal barbs rusted off, and I put some tape here because this isn't going to work, so we're just going to remove this, I think. And I got to figure out, I don't really need it, but I don't really want this catching on the frame. So, I could leave it like it is, but I'm thinking maybe I can get a self-tapping screw and a washer, real small screw, and just zip that in. That's really the only spot. So I'll look at that. And then you can see we're missing the battery because the battery was dead, and basically the turn signals and the brake light were really weak. And then also when you go to stop and you've got the brake on, the brake light robs power from the whole system and your headlight dims down to nothing. So I did something. I'll show you in a second. So, we've got this monstrosity of a trunk on here that I ought to maybe make some kind of a catch for it because it kind of bangs up and down when you're riding, so I've just duct taped it down for now. But I threw in this massive was it a UPC battery, one of those backup battery things. I bought it for my Urban Express, but I couldn't really tell how big it was online, so I took a chance on it. I think I got it for $20 or whatever. And I was thinking, man, this looks like the perfect size for this battery. So I strapped this battery in and ran some long wires and connected them back there. So it's 12 volts. So I've got a 12 volt, well, the headlight doesn't really matter, but I've got a 12 volt brake light. The turn signals are 6 volt, so we'll see how those manage. And then I've done this before on a Chappie, run a 12 volt battery on a 6 volt system, and the only thing I was really worried about was would it charge up the 12 volt battery, and it seems to. So worst case scenario, you might have to throw the battery on the charger, your portable charger occasionally. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be fine. It'll be fine. All right, here's the beauty of this massive battery. Pretty intense, huh? Doing the manual winker here because my flasher relay Doesn't seem to be doing the job, but so I don't know, it may be overpowered, but you know, my goal with this thing was to build it strictly with parts that I had laying around, and I didn't want to buy anything. The only thing I bought was a seat cover. I mean, specifically for this bike. Everything else I already had. So we're just going to roll with it and see how it goes. And we've got a new tire on the back, and I had some brake shoes, and then I lubed the cable and put a new brake spring right down in there. A real high gauge spring, so it just snaps back. Because even after lubing the cable, I was having trouble getting the lever to snap back. So I went with that high gauge spring, so it'll create a lot of tension and snap back. Hold on a second, let me see here. The newer looking one is the higher gauge spring that I replaced it with. I had to cut off. It was a longer spring, so I had to cut off the end. But yeah, this thing's a beast, man. So let's see. As compared to and where she landed, nobody knows. So I had the MLM Delordo adapter already, and so I put on the Delordo SHA carb clone one I had. But I've never really had a problem with these clone carbs, except maybe the once with the QT50. But on the SHA clone carbs, yeah, $17, it's a no-brainer. And then Carl actually had an extra air filter, so I didn't have to buy that. Thank you again, Carl. And I added a new fuel line and a filter as well. Usually the petcock, which is, let me turn this. Where's the petcock? There it is. The petcock is on the left side on the NA50, or at least the handle is. And I was surprised that it still worked, and it works in all three positions. No leaks, so hey, I'll take it. I also got rid of the, I'm not using the oil tank right now, and I drained all the oil, and I capped off the oil plug as well. And then I had mentioned before, I had done some spoke replacement and a little truing. I got to do a little more truing. But I think there are 3 or 4 spokes missing, and I added those back in and did a little wheel truing. I got a little more to go. And these are just these Kenda K261 tires, I think. And then moving on. By the way, those are Yamaha QT50 turn signals that I added. I had those laying around. And then I had an extra IRC, NR77 tire. And the reason I like these, I'd like to put one on the back, but they really don't fit that well on the back. But since Honda did the fender stay over the fender, you get a lot more room to mount bigger tires. So this is a 2 3/4 inch wide tire, as opposed to like the 2 1/4 inch wide tire in the back. So little more rubber on the road, I think, is generally pretty good. And I just tightened up the brakes there. Probably need to lube that cable as well. And then up above, let's see here, that is still the original headlight. I just took the Dremel and cut out the old bulb, and then JB welded in a kind of like a car headlight bulb. 12 watt, 55, 60 watt, which is probably too much for this thing, but again, you know, I didn't want to spend 40 bucks on, or 30 bucks on a replacement headlight bulb. I had like a $5 one laying around, so I bought it, and I added that mirror, which I already had, and the horn works, and might just need to do a little cleanup on the spokes here. And since I added the SHA carb, this stock carb was an auto choke system, and I don't really care for all those hoses and crap running around, so all the hoses connected to this thing are gone. And I wanted to do some engine work, but as I said in the other video on this thing, this cylinder is fused to the case, maybe just rust welded on. And actually this thing runs great, and it almost starts every time first kick, which is pretty amazing, including the first start that I had it on video that you saw. And so, you know, maybe it's best to leave good enough alone. And then I forgot to mention, for anyone who's interested, I'm running a 71 jet in that SHA carb, and really the only mod to this bike is the MLM People's Pipe, which we'll get to next. And the top temperature I think that I've seen so far is 366. I've done some pretty good full throttle runs. I might, if I had a 72 jet or 73, I would stick it in there just to play it safe, but I don't right now. I might just go with what plug is in here? Of course I can. It's a 4. I might go with a 5 plug and just see how that works out. I've got a friend who's interested in this. He already has an Orange Express that he bought off me. So, and this would allow him to ride with his son, or his other son to ride with his son. They'd have 2 together. I'll get to the MLM pipe and we'll wrap this up. And there's the power plant. The MLM People's Side Bleed pipe for the Honda Express. And that gets me to about 34 miles an hour, which is pretty good in its current configuration. And because it's a 2-speed engine, you don't lose too much low end, which you often do with a performance pipe. So takeoff is still pretty darn sweet, and I'll come in closer here. And then, I added that regulator too. That's a QT50 regulator. Just when I hadn't switched the battery and was using that old dead battery, I didn't want, even though I'd filled it with water, I was still worried that the bulbs might burn out, blow out, so I added that. But anyhow, the only issue with the MLM pipes is they never seem to mount up just right out of the box. And on this one I actually cut the side bracket off here, and then I did a bracket and a bracket, screwed them through, and then went through with the bolt to the mount there on the case. And this you can actually swing back and forth to give you a little more adjustment as well. And generally when you mount one of these pipes, or any pipe for that matter, you want to mount it to the cylinder first, and then see where this lines up, and then adjust it as necessary to bolt it in the way that it lines up, because if this side mount is slightly off and you start to mount this first and then mount the pipe to your cylinder, you will either, you probably won't bend the pipe, but you're going to put pressure on it in a certain point as if you were bending it, and it will break eventually. So you want to kind of fully tighten it to the cylinder, see where the side mount lines up, and then if the stock bolt hole doesn't match the case bolt hole, you need to make adjustments so that it does. Like for example on the Urban Express, I've often just drilled out, I've kept the side mount as is, I haven't cut it off like I have here, and I've just drilled a different hole in the side mount that would match up with the bolt hole in the case that exists there. So hey, just a word to the wise, you know, or a word to make you wise, because I've made this mistake. You don't need to make it too. I'm telling you, I'm just trying to help you out, brother. Do you a favor. So anyways, I kept the oil pump, just kind of capped it off, and I could go back to the oil pump system. I would just need to find, well, you know, I could probably, so this is oil in, oil out. I could probably route it to the base of the intake where that auto choke hose went. So that's an interesting idea. My buddy who was thinking of buying it might prefer the oil injection, but anyways. And then really, you know, I might do a few other things, but this bolt hole is stripped, so I can either re-tap it or come up with some other solution there, because that's to the rack, and the rack is holding up all that, so I probably want to get that in good. So anyhow, that's about it on the Express, and tomorrow it's just going to rain in the morning, so let me set this down. I'll be able to ride in the afternoon and get a little ride video in. Thanks for watching.